Today we are going to be learning how to thread the sewing machine. So I have the sewing machine all ready to go here. I've got my supplies that I need. I have my spool of thread, my spool pin holder, and my bobbin, and that should be everything that we need in order to thread our sewing machine. So we start off with our spool of thread, and you take the spool of thread and it goes onto the spool pin. Now you should have one thread coming off here, that's what you want. After you get the spool of thread onto the spool pin, you go ahead and put the spool pin holder on, and that will prevent the thread from flying off while we are sewing. Then you're going to go ahead and take your thread, and if you come over here, you can see the little direction lines here. So we're going to follow this solid line, and that's going to explain to us how to thread our sewing machine. So we're going to take our thread, and we're going to go back behind at number 1, okay? So we go back this little lip here, and then you follow down. 2 says to come down, so you go down to here. Here's number 3, and it's a U-turn, so you got to turn around and go back up. Now here's a kind of tricky part for a lot of 6th graders. This is where you need to make sure that you catch this take-up lever here. So you take and you go around the area so that you catch on the take-up lever. See, I didn't catch, so you just take and you drag your thread around the outside edge, and that time it did catch on that take-up lever. If you can't see your take-up lever, you need to make sure that you turn your hand wheel, because your hand wheel is what makes your take-up lever go up and down. So if your take-up lever is not up, turn the hand wheel. After you go around number 4, you go back down, and it has a number 5. Number 5 then takes us to this itty bitty little tiny hook here. Okay, I know it's kind of tricky to see, but this hook right here holds your thread onto your needle. So it's going to be kind of tricky to see. But all you do is you take the thread between 2 fingers here, and you just push it behind that little hook. So like I said, the only purpose for that is to hold the thread really close to the needle. Then, this is probably the trickiest part of all, is getting your needle threaded. Okay, so the eye, once again, is at the bottom of your needle, not at the top like it was when we hand sewed. Now it's at the bottom of the needle. So you just take your thread, and you want to put it through the eye of the needle. And when you do this, you always want to make sure that you're putting your thread from the front of the needle toward the back of the needle. If you try to come this way, it's going to mess up your machine if you try coming from the back to the front. So you always want to go from the front to the back, catching that eye. And once you get it partially through the eye, you just go ahead and grab your thread and pull it so that it's flat like this. Then, after, that's all you have to do to thread the top part of the machine. I would say that's probably the easier part. Now we have to do the bobbin. So this is the bobbin case as a reminder. All you have to do is pull this little black lever and the bobbin case pops off. Okay, then you just take this little plastic piece and set it to the side. Now you actually have to grab your bobbin. So when you get your bobbin, you want to make sure that it makes the shape of the letter P. Okay, if you try to put it in upside down like a number 9, like this, it's not going to work in your sewing machine. So it has to be, honestly, it's unwinding clockwise. So you want to make sure that it looks like the letter P when you put it in. So then you take your bobbin and you set it into the bobbin case. Then there's these tiny little arrows on here and a little diagram that will help as well. All you do is you take your thread and you follow these little arrows. So you hook it back behind this arrow and then lead it up and around, following the arrows until you get to this point. Now, if I keep pulling, it cuts my thread for me, and that means that I am ready to sew. And that should be all you need in order to get your sewing machine threaded. Just remember that there's 2 steps. There's both the spool on top of your sewing machine and the bobbin. Your sewing machine will not sew unless you have both of those done.